The Scharnhorst class were to be a class of 2 vessels, designed to be the first iteration of battleships under the Nazi regime. Following on from the First World War, the Treaty of Versailles crippled naval infrastructure in Germany, whilst also removing a massive aspect of the German navy. Originally, the fleet was destined to be given out to Allied nations. However, the crews scuttled the ships in Scapa Flow anchorage and thus null and voided the gifting to other nations. So under the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was allowed to have 8 pre-dreadnought battleships of the Braunschweig and Deutschland class, with only 6 allowed to be operational at any one time. Additionally, if the Germans wanted to build a capital ship, then they would be restricted to 10,000 tons, and one of the pre-dreadnoughts would have to be scrapped per new vessel. This would keep Germany with an equal number of ships, with 8 battleships, 8 cruisers, 8 destroyers, and 12 torpedo boats. Building a battleship would be hard, if not impossible, in the wake of the Treaty of Versailles. Designing something new wouldn't be easy, and inspiration would come from British battlecruisers. The idea for this new vessel would be for the ship to be faster than anything larger, and to have guns more powerful than anything faster. Sound familiar? Well, this is how we got the Deutschland-class Panzerschiff, or pocket battleship. These heavy cruisers would be built during the Weimar Republic, and all 3 ships would be under construction before Hitler was made Chancellor in 1933. In this year, the first designs for the new class of battleship would be drawn up, so-called Proposal D, or Design D, or sometimes referred to as the Ersatz Alsace. Ersatz Alsace and Ersatz Hessen were to be larger Deutschland-class heavy cruisers. This would include a longer, flush-deck hull with 280mm or 11-inch guns in 2 triple turrets, similar to the Deutschland-class heavy cruisers. Additionally, they would have been armed with 4 of the dual 5.9-inch secondary gun turrets. Next door in France, the Marine Nationale was constructing 2 Dunkirk-class battlecruisers to counter the Deutschland-class. And in Germany, the newly appointed head of the Reichsmarine, cum Kriegsmarine, Erich Raeder, saw that these 2 French battlecruisers were better in every single way, and he would voice his objections. Even with the objections, hulls Delta and Echo would be laid down on January 25th and February 14th, 1934. But construction was halted. Now these ships were halted, Raeder would voice his concerns again, and thus went to the big man himself to tell him that these new ships needed some bigger guns. However, the request was declined, but he did say that the ships would need more guns, and so the ships went from 6 to 8 11-inch guns. The 11-inch guns would end up being chosen due to the delay that the ship's construction would have, because of the proposed 12 or 13-inch guns, depending on the source, would take a number of years to produce. But by 1935, the Anglo-German Naval Agreement was signed, and thus gave Germany the tonnage limit of 35% of the Royal Navy. This enabled Germany to build something akin to a battleship, and they did. Scharnhorst class would be officially 26,000 tons. However, in reality, the ships would weigh a little bit more. Primarily with a standard displacement of 31,552 tons, just a little bit more. Operationally, this would rise to 37,822 tons, so not that much. The ships would be, as built, 229.8 metres long, have a beam of 30 metres, a draft ranging from 8.69 to 9.93 metres, and a freeboard of 5.5 metres. Propulsion system consisted of geared turbines. Now, Scharnhorst would be fitted with turbines from Braun, Bavaria and Co., whilst Gneisenau would be fitted with Germania turbines. Both vessels would be fitted with 12 ultra-high-pressure water tube boilers that, combined with the turbines, drove 3 shafts for a top speed of 31 knots, or 19 knots at cruise speed. Range differed between the 2 ships. Scharnhorst had the longer range at 7,100 nautical miles at cruise speed, however Gneisenau had a range of about 6,200 nautical miles. The ship's complement would be 56 officers and 1,613 enlisted personnel. With the flagstaff on board, this would increase by 10 officers and 62 enlisted, for just over 1,700 personnel. The Scharnhorsts were armed with a main battery of 3 triple 280mm 54.5 caliber 11-inch C-34 main guns, located 2 forward in A and B locations, and 1 turret aft in C location. These guns were capable of firing out to 22 nautical miles at 2,900 feet per second. The secondary armament would consist of 12 150mm 55 caliber or 5.9-inch C-28 guns, located on the main deck. 8 of these would be located in 4 dual gun turrets, and the last 4 would be in 4 single gun turrets. Heavy anti-air protection came in the form of 14 105mm 65 caliber or 4.1-inch flat guns in 7 double mounts. Medium anti-aircraft protection came in the form of 16 37mm L83 or 1.5-inch anti-aircraft guns in 8 double mounts. Light anti-aircraft protection would come in the form of 10 20mm machine guns. Finally, to round out the ship's weapon systems, they had 2 triple torpedo tubes located on the main deck. In terms of the ship's armour, the ship's armour layout was in the form of a turtleback scheme. She had a main belt that was 13.8 inches thick, and it ranged between bulkheads 5 through to 23. The deck armour ranged between 1.9 inches to 3.7 inches. The main turrets had a 14.2-inch lower face and a 5.9-inch upper face. The sides ranged between 4.3 to 7.8 inches. The rear was 3.1 to 6.7 inches, and the roof was 3.9 inches thick. However, if you want a more in-depth, detailed look at the ship's armour scheme, the image on screen is the armour scheme layout for the ship. With the scrapping of the Project Delta cruisers, all resources went into these 2 large vessels, and as such, they were built at separate shipyards. Hull 1 would be laid down and constructed on Slipway 2 at the Kriegsmarine Werft shipyards at Wilhelmshaven, under the contract number Sierra 125. Her keel would be laid on the 15th of June 1935 and would take 16 months to be launched. At her launch ceremony, she would be christened Scharnhorst by the widow of the previous Scharnhorst commanding officer, Captain Felix Schultz. She was also attended by Adolf Hitler. She would be launched into the Jade stern first. Moving from her slipway to the fitting out basin would go off without a hitch, and there she would start to be fitted out. Her fitting out would take 2 years and a few months, until she was commissioned into the Kriegsmarine under Captain Otto Ciliax. Hull 2 would be laid down on Slipway 1 at the Deutsche Werft shipyards at Kiel, with the contract number Kilo 235. The keel was laid on May 6, 1935, and would take 19 months to launch. Christening and launching would take place on December 8, 1936. She'd be christened Gneisenau by the widow of Captain Julius Merker, the commanding officer of the previous Gneisenau. Again, Adolf Hitler was also in attendance. When the ship was launched, the chains that would slow the ship broke, and the ship would descend into Kiel Fjord, where she continued across the water and rear-ended herself in the beach on the other side. This would cause a slight bit of damage, but it was repairable. The ship would be moved to the fitting out basin, where she would remain here until the 21st of May 1938, where she would be commissioned under Captain Erich Frost. As Gneisenau was the first ship commissioned, she would be the first ship to go to sea. She would go to sea for the first time at the end of June until July 8th for sea trials, but she would then return to Kiel. It was found that she wasn't a great sea boat in sea state above sea state 3, as she had a very wet bow and a very wet stern. A refit would take place with the ship between October and December 1938, where her old flat bow was replaced with an Atlantic bow, adding about 5 meters to the ship's length, but also adding a large flare to improve seakeeping. But this doesn't solve the whole problem. Because the ships have a low freeboard, the ships were very, very wet, and there were periods where the guns would not be able to be used. It also showed they tended to roll a bit in heavy sea states. She would remain in the vicinity of Germany until Scharnhorst was commissioned and put to sea for her sea trials. Scharnhorst put to sea in February to March of 1939 for her sea trials, but this time she went to the Baltic. It was found that Scharnhorst also suffered from the same issues as Gneisenau, and so she would be needing a refit for the new Atlantic bow, and those take place between June and August of 1939. During this refit, it wasn't just the Atlantic bow that would be added. There would be more alterations to the ship to make her look a lot different to Gneisenau. For starters, the main mast, like our Gneisenau, was on a platform just aft of the funnel. This was now moved to a full mast 26 metres aft of the ship's hangar. Additionally, the hangar was increased in size, a funnel cap was added, and the aft catapult, which was on top of the 11-inch gun turret, or Caesar turret, was then deleted. This would dramatically make Scharnhorst so different to Gneisenau, and was a good indicator for the Allies of which ship was which. After this refit, she moved out of the dry dock at Wilhelmshaven, where she'd basically be when World War II kicked off. While Scharnhorst was in the dry dock being refitted, Gneisenau was at sea. She was on her first overseas trip, and for over a month she'd be the mid-Atlantic and the Mediterranean Sea conducting exercises, before returning to Kiel by the end of July. On the 1st of September 1939, World War II started, and Gneisenau would be the first vessel of the class to be the focus of the British, when an airstrike was made on the ship when she was at anchor. However, no hits would be scored. Both ships would join up on the 8th of September for exercises in the Baltic Sea, but these wouldn't last long, with Scharnhorst returning back to Wilhelmshaven to remain at anchor on the Jade until mid-November. Gneisenau would be the first of the class to sortie, with the Kolm and 8 destroyers, but no real incidents actually happened. Both sisters would join forces again on the 21st of November, sailing under Vice Admiral Wilhelm Marschall. This excursion into the North Sea would see the ship sail between the Faroes-Iceland Gap, where they would engage in a surface action with the British armed merchant cruiser HMS Rawalpindi. In this one-sided engagement, which lasted 4 hours, the Rawalpindi would be sunk by the sisters. However, the convoy that the Rawalpindi was actually escorting escaped. The sister ships then arrived back in German waters on the 27th of November, with Gneisenau sailing back into Kiel by the end of November. Scharnhorst would be the first ship to be fitted with a new magnetic self-defense system, but also the new FUMO 22 radar, being mounted atop of the director on the forward tower. In February 1940, the sisters, plus the Admiral Hipper and 8 destroyers, put to sea for Operation Nordmark. But in this 2-day operation, no combat was made and the ships would return home. Come the 6th of April, the invasion of Norway was about to commence, and so the 2 sisters would put back to sea as an escort force to Group India, the invasion force as part of Operation Wasserbung. They sailed under the command of Vice Admiral Gunther Lütjens of Bismarck fame the next year. But with these 2 capital units at his disposal, he took them 50 nautical miles off Narvik. In the early morning of the 9th, HMS Renown engaged the 2 sister ships in a brief engagement off Lofoten, where Gneisenau would be hit by one 15-inch shell to her foretop. Lütjens pulled a tactical withdrawal back to Germany to repair the Gneisenau, arriving at Wilhelmshaven on the 12th. A month later, Gneisenau would set a trend for her short career and would hit a mine. However, the damage was light and she could be repaired. On June the 4th, Operation Juno was started, with both ships, the Admiral Hipper and 4 destroyers putting to sea, with the destination to be the coast of Norway. 4 days later, the task force came across the British aircraft carrier Glorious, escorted by HMS Ardent and a Castor. In the engagement, the Glorious took immense fire from the 2 sisters, who sank Ardent, a Castor, and finally the Glorious. However, Glorious did not go down without getting one back at the Germans. One of the Swordfish aircraft was launched and torpedoed Scharnhorst on the starboard side abreast turret Caesar, knocking the gun turret out. With Scharnhorst damaged, the sisters sailed for Trondheim, where they would be anchored, but would come under attack on the 13th, when Scharnhorst was hit by a 225-kilogram bomb. But luckily for the ship, it failed to detonate. It was decided that 8 days later, the remaining undamaged ships, the Gneisenau, Hipper and the 4 destroyers, would go back to sea for Iceland. However, HMS Clyde was sat off the coast, and, well, she wasn't going to let a battleship sail past her without giving her some good news. Clyde managed to put a 21-inch torpedo into the ship's bow, just between sections 20 and 21. With about 1,000 tons of water coming on board, the group turned around and made for Trondheim at 18 knots for repairs. After a few days of localised repairs, the battleships headed for home for permanent repairs. Scharnhorst went into Dry Dock C, and Gneisenau went into Dry Dock B at Kiel for repairs that lasted until November. In November, both ships went to sea for a 3-day training exercise in the Baltic. They would then return to Gotthaven and then again Kiel for Christmas. 1941 would kick off with the sisters going on operations, called Operation Berlin. Lütjens was now back in overall command, and the 2 ships went to sea on the 23rd of January, bound for the convoy routes in the North Atlantic. They would pass through the Denmark Strait. On the 8th of February, they would sight their first convoy. However, HMS Ramillies would be the escort, and Lütjens probably decided to say no, like Dr. Evil from Austin Powers, and he would sail away from that engagement. After their second RAS of the operation, on the 14th, they would go back to hunting British convoys, when on the 22nd, they found and sank 3 merchant ships and 2 tankers. By the 27th, they were conducting their third RAS with a replenishment order, and on completion, they would break away for the Canary Islands. Come the 7th of March, a large convoy was spotted, SL-67. This was a 58-vessel-strong convoy. However, again, this was escorted by a 15-inch gunned battleship, this time HMS Malaya, along with some cruisers for added measure. Due to this, Lütjens sent out a message to the U-boats, currently on patrol, of the convoy, and subsequently, the U-boats would manage to sink 12 ships and hull HMS Malaya. 2 days later, a Greek merchant ship succumbed to 11-inch gunfire from the 2 ships, and makes a hasty escape from the area. 2 days after that, on the 11th, they would replenish with the oilers and hold a conference for all the captains with the battleships and the tanker. The next day, they would break away for some more hunting, finding their next victims 4 days later. They would capture 6 merchant ships and sink a further 10. With an excellent hunt over, the ships entered Brest on the 22nd of March, after directly sinking 113,563 tons worth of shipping. With the ships now in Brest, Scharnhorst would develop some engine trouble that would plague her for a few months, whilst Gneisenau would be torpedoed again, this time in the bow by a Beaufort aircraft. Due to this damage, she would have to be brought into dry dock for repairs. Whilst in dry dock for repairs, and in the case of Scharnhorst, alongside the pier fixing the ship's engines, the ships would come under fire by RAF Bomber Command, where they would be able to hit the Gneisenau with 4 500-pound semi-armour piercing bombs, killing 72 men, whilst on the Scharnhorst, she was hit by 5 bombs, resulting in 3,000 tons of water to ingress and require her to need to dry dock. Repair work on both these ships would last until the end of 1941. 1942 would not be a busy year. However, some parts would be high intensity for short periods. After the loss of the Bismarck, it was viewed that commerce raiding with surface units was deemed too costly to the Kriegsmarine, and that U-boats could do it better. Therefore, the High Command wanted both Scharnhorsts and the Prince Eugen back in German waters. Vice Admiral Otto Ciliax, the Scharnhorst's first commanding officer, would organise the ships for departure under Operation Cerberus, the Channel Dash. Sailing on the 11th of February, the ship sailed into the English Channel and up towards the Dover Strait, taking very minimal damage, considering the daylight passage. However, on the other side of the strait, the real damage would come. On the 13th, Gneisenau and Scharnhorst hit a mine and 2, respectively. Scharnhorst immediately put into Wilhelmshaven for repairs, but sailed for Kiel after for permanent repairs, whilst Gneisenau would sail directly for Kiel, where she would enter a dry dock for repairs. And this is where her downfall would come. On the night of the 26th of February, a heavy air raid was conducted over Kiel, resulting in the bombs hitting the ship's forecastle and resulting in damage that would put the ship out of action there and then, and resulting in 112 personnel being killed. With Gneisenau now out of action, Hitler and the Kriegsmarine wanted to upgunner to take the double 15-inch gun turrets, like those fitted to Tirpitz. After patching the holes, she was escorted to Gotthaven for reconstruction, before the decommissioning process was enacted. This would see her out for the rest of the year. Back with the Scharnhorst, in mid-August she would leave Kiel for Gotthaven, where she would remain for the rest of the year. 2 years after sailing for Operation Berlin, Scharnhorst, in company with the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen, would sail for Operation Domino. However, that would sort of fall on its face, and they would have to return back to base. Also in January, reconstruction work would be halted on Gneisenau due to resource constraints, and Hitler was going through one of those weird phases. Back to Scharnhorst. On the 6th of March, it would see her break for Norway. The 6th of March would see the Scharnhorst make a break for Norway, to join Tirpitz, the Lutzow, and arrived on the 9th, where she would go to anchor in Borgen Bay near Narvik until the 23rd. On the 23rd, she, Tirpitz, Lutzow and 6 destroyers went to sea for Operation Silesia, where they would transit to Altenfjord for trials until July. After a bit of swinging around at anchor for July and most of August, September would see the next operation, Operation Sicilian. The battleships, Lutzow and 8 destroyers, went to bombard a weather station on Salzburg. Scharnhorst would go to sea one last time, sailing from Altenfjord for Operation Ostfront, destined to intercept a convoy, JW-55 Bravo. Sailing in tow with the Scharnhorst would be the destroyers Z-29, Z-30, Z-33, Z-34 and the Z-38. They sailed on Christmas Day, leaving the fjord for the last time. For the crews, this would be their last off-watch. The next day, Scharnhorst would be engaged by the British battleship Duke of York, the cruisers Norfolk, Sheffield, Belfast, Jamaica, as well as a destroyer screen. Over the day, in a blustery, snowy day, the British warships shelled Scharnhorst until she was a burning wreck, and ended up capsizing at 1945 hours. Out of a crew of 1,800 plus, 36 crew members would be saved. With the sinking of the Scharnhorst, there would be no Scharnhorst-class battleships in service. However, this wouldn't be the last we see of the class. In 1945, Gneisenau would be moved into shallow waters in Gotthaven and scuttled as a block ship. She would remain in this state for 5 years, when she was raised and eventually scrapped.